Test. We're good.
Good evening. Today is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We're in the Brecksville Broadview Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville, Ohio. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as an indicated agenda item. This meeting will be live streamed via YouTube and will also be recorded for later viewing. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where all recordings are posted. Item 1B, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1C, roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Moving on to item 2, President's announcements. I have none, so we'll move on to item 3, Board appointed reports. Cuyahoga Valley Career Center report. Rachel is here, so Rachel, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Can you just make sure you push the button, please?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I excitedly announced that we have broke ground on our new building that will home our construction trades program and allow for the immense growth that we have had and needed. There's over 70 children, or students, I should say, they're high school students, but there's 70 students on the wait list for construction trade program. And what's really exciting about this is that when we look at workforce trends, that there is a large need and the students' interest is growing with what our community and what the United States needs. So they will have a lot of opportunity upon graduating. Another thing I wanted to note about that building, long before my appointment, the board and leadership at CBCC were financially preparing for this build out. But a few years ago, CBCC leadership applied and obtained an $8 or $9 million grant that will cover the cost of the building, which is really beneficial to all students attending and that we can continue to invest in other programs. And you guys know that that money doesn't come easy, and I just really wanted to acknowledge their efforts for that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was Brecksville Broadview Heights specific statistics. So 20% of our juniors and seniors at Brecksville Broadview Heights attend a CBCC program. And when we look back at 10 years, we see a 17% growth in CBCC students from Brecksville Broadview Heights. And that even includes the COVID years. We have a variable drop, I think, that kind of deflates what the real numbers would be. But really excited for the growth, but also CBCC committed to following workforce trends and ensuring that we're growing programs, but programs that are reputable and that will be beneficial to these students when they graduate. The last thing I wanted to share with you is this program that I didn't know existed. It's called Success Academy. And this is for students that are identified in their 8th grade year as being poor performers in either attendance or academics or both. And these students are able to attend CBCC in their 9th and 10th grade years, which is not typical. And they are put in a smaller class size, and they are put with teachers that have specific training for students that have barriers that they can't identify or that they can, and they help them overcome these barriers to make this student more academically successful. And the program comes with such rave reviews that other board members who have students in the program and the CBCC educators say that these students that initially come in struggling end up being leaders and awarded the Outstanding Student Awards in their 12th grade year. So not only do they obtain a high school diploma, but they also have real workforce training and some new leadership skills, and just to really see students change the trajectory of their life from this program was awesome. And I just wanted to share with our district, we do not have any students enrolled in it currently, but if in case it, is interesting to somebody, I wanted to share that resource with everybody. And that's it. I know that we have our all boards dinner next week, and some of you are coming, and that means so much to me. I know you already have a busy, busy day with other board obligations. So I really appreciate you squeezing us in on that day. And for those of you who can't make it, I completely understand. And I look forward to hosting you this next time I see you.
Okay.
Mhm. Oh, sure.
No, I just have a quick question. Is the new building being, is it also going to be at the plot over there on 21 by Wallings?
Yes, it's
Okay.
yes, it's almost attached. It's just right in the back, kind of off the Valiant.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right.
I just had a question of clarification
Sure.
regarding the statistic you provided
Yes.
us. You said 20% of junior and seniors of our junior and
Yes.
senior classes here
Yeah.
attend the CVCs.
Yeah, so around like 19% of juniors and 20%, almost 21% of seniors are attending CVCC programs at
Okay.
Brecksville Broadview.
Awesome.
And if they had more seats, it would be higher.
Really? Yeah. I mean,
We want to fight, claw, scratch, and bribe Rachel to get us more seats because we have
Ready.
students who would like to attend the Career Center who unfortunately are on a wait list. And I think our numbers have continued to grow because of the workforce trends and the investment in career technical education in the state of Ohio. So I know Kevin Jacob and myself and Dr. Martin have had lots of conversations about some programming we can do in-house for those
To
cases
meet-
when our kids can't get over there.
need some more.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. I know, probably upwards of 6 to 8 years ago, that we had a very low enrollment, from BBH going to CVCC. So I think that's fantastic. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that
Yeah.
impact that. But I was wondering, based on that, my next question would be, I don't know if you know, when you look at all the districts that have seats at CVCC, do you know where we fall as far as, because our enrollment used to be so low, and when I would talk to people at CVCC, they were always like, we don't understand what's going on at the district.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of wondering where we're at now, if you would.
So I
Get
can
any idea?
provide those exact numbers, but I do know every school is given a certain amount of seats. And then if, say, Garfield has, 5 extra cosmetology seats, they will divvy it up between the districts in need. But usually every district is allotted a certain amount, and then we kind of play with, or they play with them from there. But I can get you those exact numbers and look a little more into it.
Okay, I just wondered, but
Yeah.
it sounds like we're maxing out. I mean,
Well,
Okay.
it's a change from before, because I know from years ago,
Mhm.
since this is my 13th year on the
Right.
board, we used to not use all the seats, and ours
Mhm.
were the
We're
ones
giving-
that were being given to other districts because we didn't have enough student interest
Mhm.
to go, and we were trying to do different things to figure out how to get more students interested, and, maybe there's just more, interest now with a lot of families looking at CBCC and technical.
Workforce
careers.
readiness, and it's
Yeah.
changed. And the college for all mentality isn't necessarily the same as it used to be, nor should it be, because trends are changing. The job force is changing. We'll hear more about that during strategic plan at State of the Schools, about how, we're trying to embed a lot of CTE type of concepts and practices within our coursework at the high school, just to prepare our students for a career. And a career, depending on their career path, it may mean college, university, it may not. It may mean a trade school, it may mean an apprenticeship. There's other paths to get there, because unfortunately, in the United States of America, college, university is the most expensive career exploration program known to man.
Yes, that's what we always say when we see someone maybe not come back the next year from junior to senior year. We say, well, unless it's a consistent trend, then we look at ourselves. But we say, maybe this is a good thing for the student, so that they discovered it in junior year, going into senior year, then second year in college or something like that. So, yeah, agree more.
So the other question I have is,
Sure.
if our district is using up all of its seats and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of our students are getting waitlisted,
Mhm.
is that that trend also for the other 7 districts that feed into CVCC? And is it a trend that is expanding into other districts too, or is that more of a BBH?
I don't see it as being so much of a trend, but some of our programs are more popular than others, and you'll see in districts, like I just used just off the top of my head. Some districts have more interest in a certain program, and then once you use your seats, then you kind of have to shuffle in between a district that maybe doesn't have students as interested. It's just, there are trends within different districts of what career training is popular. So that might be where our problem is. It might be our students. Construction trades is like a really big one. And there was a lot of students also ready to hit the ground running. We're starting a heavy machinery program. Like people can graduate and just get running, but there was quite a few students last year that I met that actually went on to college for business management and construction trades too. So it's not just fitting students that want career tech too. You're kind of fighting with students that want a more traditional route as well. So that could be also a little bit of a barrier, we could say. But
And is that how the seats work? They're per program,
yes,
right?
per
Okay,
program
it's
for
not-
district. Yeah. Mhm.
Great. Any other questions? Great, thanks for
Great.
the
Thank
update.
you so much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, the other item is OSBA Legislative Liaison. Ellen?
No updates.
Okay, we'll move on to item 4, Superintendent Committee Reports, Financial Liaison Audit Committee, Tish and myself. Audit's getting ready to gear up.
We're about 95% done.
Okay.
With both the gap conversion as well as the financial audit. So still the final stretch, they have to do a lot of that work on their own. So we should hopefully be done by December, the latest. The gap should be done by the end of October, 1st of November.
Okay. Permanent Improvement Committee, Ava and myself.
I have a quick update if you don't mind.
go
added
ahead.
it here. Now that we have the Hilton bid in for the demolition, I think that kind of clears up a lot of funds and plans that we need to do. So I wanted to touch base with Ava and Mark tonight and see if Friday, November 1st, if you'd be available to come in and meet with us as a team to have kind of our PI committee meeting and kind of go over it. And then on November 20th, our next board meeting, we do the board presentation of basically the same information. So, and you don't have to let me know tonight, but Craig and I looked at our calendars and Friday, November 1st seemed to be readily available. So if it works for you guys, we can get something together.
Okay.
No.
Well,
Okay, no problem. I'll shoot you some other dates, but it'll be somewhere in that first week of November.
okay. Board Policy Committee, Ellen and Lisa.
Good. Sherry continues to contact Neola once a week, and she did this morning. And Pat Corbett said that you should have something by the end of the week. I'm thinking, well, today's Wednesday, Pat, but we did get a special release here just this evening as I was sitting here on Senate Bill 29. So we do have some information. It's not policy work yet, but it's just a legal update. So usually the legal update comes, and then usually the policy update comes next. So he apologized for the delay, but he said there's a lot going on right now and they're just trying to work through it. So we'll see if Pat is true to his word. We'll have it by the end of the week.
Okay.
So.
All right, sounds good. Transportation Appeals Committee, myself, there are none. Hopefully that trend continues. Excuse me. Safety and Security Meeting, Ava and Ellen. You guys are meeting.
Well, I actually went to the, and it had a long name, the Emergency Management Plan tabletop exercise that was in here yesterday, which was very interesting. Mr. Koss was the organizer, but the people who are, responsible for safety and security in our district were presented with a number of hypotheticals by the moderator and just gave him information about how they would respond. And then they kind of did a strengths and weaknesses analysis as to, how that particular response is good, could be improved on, that type of thing. It was actually pretty interesting. So that was yesterday morning. Anyway, so.
Okay. Very good. Schools Foundation report, Tish.
Yeah, it was kind of a late month for the Schools Foundation. They are currently beginning to plan their fundraiser for the year. That will be in 2025, most likely in February, but you can expect a lot more information on the date and the venue coming up and in the future months. And then just to, check out our social media pages so that you can get a glimpse of the grants that are going on right now in our buildings that the Schools Foundation has funded. They are fantastic. The middle school PE seems to be incredibly popular. So that's it for me.
Great, thanks. Sustainability Committee, Ellen and Ava.
No updates.
Okay, PSO report, Lisa.
The biggest thing going on with PSO right now is All the units just concluded their No Fuss fundraisers on October 11th. So if you don't know what a No Fuss fundraiser is, basically instead of selling raffle tickets or doing a silent auction or asking the kids to sell magazines or popcorn or something like that, the PSOs just ask people to give them money. So the benefit of that is instead of working with an outside company or paying money for prizes, 100% of the money goes back to the PSO and the students. So it can be used for educational activities and events and classroom resources and things like that. So that closed out on October 11th. The high school had a goal of $5,000. They surpassed their goal this year. Usually they pick a project that they want to benefit, but this year they're going to work with the teachers to select gift items that will enhance the classroom learning environment. The middle school had a goal of 8,500 and they surpassed that goal. They spend that money on class socials, school musicals, school clubs, Washington, D.C. scholarships, trip supplies, staff appreciation, and different projects to improve the school building. And the elementary school, they had a goal of $30,000. They didn't get to that. They raised $20,000, which is still amazing. And they use that money for their Gifts and Goals program. Their Gifts and Goals program is kind of like a grant program for their teachers. So every year the teachers at the elementary school basically put in applications to the Gifts and Goals committee, and they can request different items and they are approved by the committee, which is made up of parents through the PSO and the principals in the building. Last year, the committee approved $22,000 in requests, and those items included STEM items, equipment for the esports program, math and writing materials and games, musical enrichment items, books for classroom libraries, media center apps, headphones, sensory items for classroom use, storage items, furniture, including easels, floor seats, carpet, or classrooms for carpets, and more. So the money that our community donates, that our parents donates, is so appreciated. It's used to impact our student learning and to just enhance everything that already goes on in the classroom. And just a big thank you from the PSO to everyone who donated and supports these programs. And if you still want to donate after hearing all that, the links are still up on their web pages and Facebook pages. So they definitely are still taking donations, even though the official fundraising time has closed down. So that's what happened with that. And then the next PSO council meeting is Thursday, November 7th at 9:30. That's it.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 5, superintendent's announcements. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
I just have a couple quick ones, and then we get to really the main attraction tonight as far as the presentation by the food service department. But the state of the schools, we're all set. Invitations have been sent out. I continue to send invitations out as people think of someone or somebody asks about it. But community-wide email update went out this evening at 4 o'clock. So in your inbox, you should have the latest superintendent update that goes out to the community. The hard copy community newsletter should hit mailboxes this week and next. So they're en route. So those should hit. The digital version is available on the website already. So it has all that information in there. In addition, it has the road show that Craig and I will be participating in and doing the coffee chats through the rest of the school year. We'll visit Broadview Heights in the coffee club. And then when we're in Brecksville, we'll be at Panera. Those are from like 9 to 10. They are in the morning. They are obviously targeting a certain demographic. And as we go through, and if these are successful, we will find other times in other locations that are maybe more convenient for those who work during the day. But we are targeting a portion of our community that is available during that time. And so Craig and I are excited. Hope people show up and we can share all the good things that are going on in the district and answer any questions that our community may have. And just trying to continue to find ways to engage with our community. So those are kind of my updates. One other thing, Kevin Jacob, Darlene Wallace, and myself will be traveling to Washington, D.C. November 8th and 9th for the Blue Ribbon ceremony. So they'll go a couple days ahead of me. I'll fly out on Friday for the awards ceremony. So we will be in D.C. representing Brecksville Broadview Heights and be bringing home a flag and a plaque and all that good stuff. So I know they're super excited, and we're looking forward to representing BBH. So with that, I'm going to welcome our guest this evening, Amy Voigt, who's our food service director. She's going to tell us a little bit about the wonderful food and services that Amy and her team provide for our students on a daily basis.
Thanks, Jeff. Wait for Craig to open it up. And Craig, you have access to that slideshow, right? Okay.
Oh, okay, go away.
Well, as Jeff mentioned, I'm Amy Voigt. I'm the food service supervisor here in the district. And I'm here to talk about our food service department and the National School Lunch Program. So the National School Lunch Program is a federally funded program that was established in 1946, and its purpose is to provide nutritionally balanced meals to students at no cost or low cost during the school day. And it is, like I mentioned, a federally funded program, and there are federal meal pattern requirements for calories, saturated fat, sodium, as well as serving size requirements for whole grains, proteins, fruits, vegetables, and milk each day. And then we receive reimbursement from the government based on the number of meals that we serve. So these next two slides kind of just go over our meal pattern in a little bit more detail. So our dietary specifications are broken down by the different grade groups. So we have grades K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. So there's different calorie ranges that we have to meet for those grade groups, as well as saturated fat content and sodium limits. And then there will be a limit on added sugar that will come into effect for the 27-20 school year. So that was passed last year, and that gives manufacturers some time to make items that are compliant with those new guidelines. And then this next chart just shows a little bit more in detail about the meal components and the serving sizes that we have to meet, that I have to meet when I make the menu. So the number in parentheses is the daily minimum, and then the number outside of the parentheses is the weekly minimum. There's different meal components for different serving size requirements for the fruits, vegetables, grains, meat, alternates, which are proteins, and then fluid milk. But I wanted to point out for the vegetables, you'll see that there's different subgroups of vegetables. So it's not enough just to offer a half a cup or a cup of vegetables each day. We have to meet certain criteria for the subgroup of vegetables each week. And then any item that's sold to students during the school day that's not included in our meal pattern, those are called smart snack items. Those must also meet nutritional guidelines for calories, fat, sodium, and sugar. So those are items that we sell a la carte, snacks and beverages, as well as items that are sold like in the vending machines, in school stores as part of fundraising efforts. Items such as that. And then I touched on the hydroponic lettuce already, but just to recap, we have 2 hydroponic gardens at our high school. Jeff Sidaway and Andy Wheelis, they, along with their students in the special ed classrooms, do the daily maintenance of the lettuce and herbs that we grow. It's about a 5 to 6 week process. First, we plant the little seedlings in this rock bowl over here. And then about a week later, we transfer them over to the hydroponic towers. They're on a light timer of about 16 to 18 hours a day. And then 3 weeks after that, lettuce is ready to harvest. We get about 25 pounds of lettuce per harvest, and it lasts about 3 weeks in the cooler, which is a long shelf life for fresh lettuce. And then just a quick composting update. I know that we heard from Robert from Rust Belt Riders back in August. We have 14 households that have signed up for the composting initiative at home. And they have collected, Rust Belt Riders has collected just under 1,200 pounds of food scraps from our kitchen so far.
So I think we need like one more family, don't we, to get to the break
Yeah,
in
I
price?
think we're almost at that tier to get that first discount.
Just one more, right? We'll take a lot more, but one more.
And then next up. And then this last slide is just some pictures of our awesome food service staff. We have 23 food service employees who, with a combined total, they have 128 years of experience in food service. Mhm. And then I did put together a little slideshow of our food photos, some of the offerings that we have, you know, and throughout all three of our buildings. So we try to incorporate fresh produce as much as we possibly can. And the students seem to take really well to it.
Have you asked what the drawback is for making the salad bar more popular? I mean, what is, because it used to be unbelievably popular.
Yeah. We get maybe a handful of students. It's actually more popular with the adult staff.
Ah,
Mm-hmm. I don't know. We could do surveys. We could,
do they have too
do
many
market research
choices?
there. Yeah, we have a variety of choices. Obviously we start with our lettuce and we have different vegetable toppings that you can add and different proteins. Croutons, we have cheese, we have, the different salad dressings. It does come with a whole grain dinner roll. So that would be my choice if I was in high school and having that as a lunch option.
Do we have a lot of kids at the high school that actually eat lunch? I'm just curious.
We, our participation there is about 250 lunches a day.
Okay.
250, 300, depending on the menu, depending on what we're offering. We do offer, our main item. We always have like a pizza item, whether it's pizza or mozzarella sticks. And then we do wraps and hummus bistro boxes, as well as the salad bar. So we do have quite a bit of offerings.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think that's just kind of the nature of it. Participation is really high at the elementary school, and then we kind of see it kind of plateau out at the middle school, and then high school just.
Yeah.
They can leave for lunch, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
They have open campus.
Juniors
If they have
and
open campus.
seniors. Yeah.
Yes, just juniors and seniors this year.
Or they can buy a la carte items.
Yeah.
Right.
And we also have, it's called the Hive. It's at the high school. That's kind of like we do serve full meals there, so a student can get a complete meal there. But that's kind of like a quick, convenient grab and go concept.
Any other questions for Amy that you'd like?
Can I ask about smart snacks? So like I saw like a picture of Doritos there. So am I understanding correctly? So like the Doritos we have here isn't like the Doritos like I would buy in the store for my kids. Is that correct?
Yeah. So those Doritos they are whole grain, and they are reduced fat, low sodium. So they do meet within the guidelines there. Unfortunately, I can't serve something that's,
No.
I'm sure the students would love that.
Do the students even know the difference? Do they know that's not Doritos?
So it is Doritos. It's
Or,
just
like,
a lower
That
fat
it's not
version
like
of it.
store Doritos.
Right. I've never done like a taste test. I'd be
Okay.
curious to do that. Like a blind taste test to see which one they prefer. These guidelines have been in effect since Michelle Obama. So I think that their palates have become a little bit more accustomed. That's the hope at least. And they're even getting more and more strict with the new sodium limits and added sugar limits too.
I know, I don't think like a lot of people are aware that like the snacks we sell are different, like that it's a different, that it's different than the food you find in the store.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That'd be interesting.
I'm curious, vending machines, do we have vending machines? How many and what's in the what's being offered in the vending machine?
So we have two versions of vending machines. Food service, for our food service department, we have 2 vending machines at the high school that we stock with items that we know are compliant. And then we just signed a contract with Coca-Cola, and they do provide vending machines as well. And they stock it with items that are compliant for the beverage guidelines. If they're not compliant, then they shut them off during the school day so that students can't access them.
Which I think we only have at the middle school,
I
right?
think only at the middle school, yeah.
Because of where it's located. So that one does not work during the day.
And then I think we have some for the elementary school, but I think those are just for staff. I think that might
It's in
be,
the teacher's
Yeah.
lounge, yeah.
How many lunches a day do you serve at the elementary?
it varies anywhere between 500 to 800. Pizza is a popular day, very popular. Popcorn chicken bowl is a popular day for middle and high school. not so much elementary school. It's cool to see the trends throughout the years.
Then you introduced something last week or so that was very popular too, right?
What was that?
Ice cream.
Good.
Oh,
I
whoa.
as a smart snack, a la carte for the elementary school. So we sell just snacks to grades 3 through 5 at the elementary building. And we started selling ice cream and it is a hit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it meets the guidelines.
it
so
does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then parents can choose if they don't want their students to buy that, then they don't buy it.
Yeah.
And like what you just mentioned, so people can contact you and like there's different settings like you can put on a child's
Yeah.
account. So you can shut off snacks, you can shut off like
Yeah.
whatever parent.
Unfortunately, the parent doesn't have access to that, but I can do it on my end. I always ask for written request of that, so I can refer back to that if ever needed. But yeah, they can put a daily spending limit. They can, disable their students from buying specific items. So I can make those changes on my end, and then it shows up on our screen at point of sale.
And then, I was gonna ask one. And parents can also see, is it through Pay Schools? Like you can pull up what your child has bought. If you're
Yeah.
like, where did the lunch balance go? Like you can
Yep.
pull up a PDF of
Mhm.
everything your child has bought too.
The parent version is Pay School Central. But yes, they can log on. If they haven't logged on at all, they first need to register their student with their full student ID number. And then they can go on, they can add money to their student's lunch account. They can pay their school fees. They can look at their transaction history. They can transfer money between siblings. So it's very user friendly, I think, for the parent end of it.
And that wasn't always the case though, was it? With Pay School
I think that's a
Central?
newer feature where
I
they
was
can
gonna-
transfer between, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
within
they
the
were-
last 2 years, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's always been the case that you could put limits on what you could purchase.
Since we've been with Pay Schools, we have been.
Oh.
But so before then, though, with the other program, we could not, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, I mean, that is really nice. The reason I ask is I know that I bought a table full of snacks at times when my kids were in elementary school.
Right. And our staff is so great. They come to me and they're like, hey, we see so-and-so middle
Yeah.
schooler buying $12 worth of snacks every day.
Yeah,
We see them giving to a friend, like, can you contact home? So I'll contact principal and we'll contact home or whatever the case. So they keep an eye on it too. Their parents, they understand that they don't want a school age student to be buying, $15 worth of snacks every day. So we do kind of monitor it a little bit when we know, if we see the same student coming through every day.
I turn the auto renewal or auto replenish off on my kids. 'Cause at first I put it in, it was just auto, and then you're like, what? So now they have to tell me they're low and I have to go in and do it. I want to just take a second to talk about Amy a little bit. I know this will embarrass her, but we are extremely, extremely fortunate to have somebody of Amy's caliber in this position. Food service directors don't grow on trees, okay? And then good ones are especially are rare. She not only does a great job leading her staff and making sure that the meals are, what students want and meet the guidelines, but she goes one step further and she continues to host interns. So she's giving back to the profession. And actually her intern right now is a parent in our district who's spending time with her. So not only is she taking care of her job during the day and doing all of that, but then she's giving back to the profession and making sure that, helping provide a pipeline for food service directors. So I've worked in a couple different districts and worked with a couple different food service directors. And I can tell you Amy's on the top of that list. We're very fortunate to have her and her staff. Those, and I say ladies because I'm pretty sure they're all ladies.
They're all ladies.
They do a great job and they take a ton of pride. Tish and I were in the elementary cafeteria this week and they had this heaping bowl of pineapple that I just wanted to tear into. And then they were cleaning strawberries and everything else. And they were talking about the ice cream. It's the only reason I knew about it. And so they do a great job. So sometimes you don't notice it until it's not operating as efficiently as possible. And then I know Craig probably super excited too, because she does a great job with her budget and making sure she's in the black and not the red, right? That's right. How it works.
That's right.
Don't jinx that now.
So thank you, Amy. And thank you for taking the time tonight to provide us and for the meal that you provided so we get a little
thank
taste
you.
of what our kids get. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
You guys
you.
are all welcome to
Thank
come
you.
for lunch if you're ever in the building. We love to have visitors and like Jeff said, we're happy to feed anyone. So if you're ever in the building, stop on by.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for what you do. And I don't think our parents are like what you showed. I don't think our families sometimes realize how complex what you do
Right.
is to make the menus and all the requirements that that you have to meet by law.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate this because it's good information for people to know that everything that you have to do to get food in our children's bellies. So,
Yes.
appreciate that.
In the past, we have had the person that's in your position at PSO meetings,
Mhm.
and that might be helpful only because it kind of
Yeah.
spreads the word.
I think I'm
of everybody
set
else.
to come to the next one in
Okay.
November. Yeah. So thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Amy.
All right, we're gonna move on to item 6, treasurer's announcements. I'll turn it over to Greg.
Well, this topic is extremely more exciting than food service. No, actually, this is a brief update. I wanted to share this with you. This was shared with us from OASBO, our professional organization. Not going to go through this, but Dr. Fleeter, Howard Fleeter, is one of the leading economists in the state of Ohio who has evaluated the property tax situation that's going on in the state of Ohio as the legislature is trying to assess what's happening with the record reappraisals and whatnot. So this report, I mean, you guys can, I uploaded this today, I believe, or maybe it was late yesterday. The days are mixing together. But take a look at it. The gist of this is basically talking about the history of property taxes in Ohio, especially from like 1975, I believe, to current. And at the very end of this, it goes through and talks about your class 1, your class 2, class 1 being your residential, class 2 being your commercial. The effective rates of class 1 have been reduced at a faster pace, meaning that the reappraisals have been much more aggressive than they have been with class 2. But class 2, if you recall, is probably being affected by House Bill 126 because there's that mechanism where they're fighting to keep their value lower, right? So that's a part of all of this. The TPP was phased out, but there is the public utility part, which has increased, but that's also a part of this piece. These charts that are here, but the really gist of this entire article is at the very bottom, which is these graphs here, which shows that back in, what is this, 1991, that class 1 accounted for 48% of school district income from voted millage. And then we fast forward to 2022, and that number has increased to 66%. So what it's basically saying is that residential property taxes have now increased, the burden has increased in class 1 in how schools are funded. And that's part of this conversation because there is legislation that they're trying to figure out how they can reduce. They're talking about House Bill 920 and whether they're going to get rid of it, whether they're going to lower it. There's all these different proposals that are coming out that could have positive, could have negative effects on schools. But part of it is being driven by this as class 2 and other areas are not being affected as much. And so we've shifted, which I talked about before with House Bill 126, that we are shifting the burden of funding our schools and other avenues or entities through residential property taxes. And so eventually that's going to cause a problem. And so this is what this article kind of points out a little bit, I think, in terms of what people will read and digest. But just take some time, read through it. But I kind of want to just, again, as we talk about property taxes and educate our public, I thought it was a good article to kind of demonstrate what's kind of happening. And then this will directly affect what our state legislators are doing and or might do in the coming months as we go through the lame duck session and whether any of those impacts will come to fruition. So just some food for thought.
This would probably be an interesting topic to talk about it.
The coffee talk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will definitely have some handouts and be loaded for bear when we get there.
Yeah. So it's laid out pretty well. It's not super long article to read. So again, take a look at it. Hopefully our public takes a look at it as well and stays informed of what's going on. And that's it for me.
Okay, thanks. I'm moving on to item 7, community communications. Item A, hearing with the public.
We do not have anybody
here. So we have no one who wants to be heard, so we will move on to item 8, other board business. Item A, Resolved to approve BEA letter of understanding as attached item. Oh, sorry. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So this is just housekeeping items. So as we finish negotiations and we have tentative agreements that we vote on and approve, essentially the guts of the contract are done. These are items that are sometimes found through the editing process. So these are just things that we consider, and also BEA considers housekeeping. And a lot of times they're clarification and or corrections. So that's what this is here. To be quite honest, in previous negotiations in other districts, housekeeping was just part of the contract process, and we didn't do a letter of understanding. But here, I think in the past, we've done that this way. So it's just memorializing that these items have been corrected.
Yeah, and we wanted, like, we do housekeeping as a part of the contract process. These were things kind of found in that final review process. And we want them to be right in the printed version of the contract. So that's really the only difference. And so we found these couple items to add to the list, and we did that in cooperation with BEA as they did that final review. Any questions?
Any comments or questions? Do a roll call here.
Well, I'll add a couple of things to this. It does take a little bit of time for that proofing of that contract. It's over 200 pages. And I will take full responsibility for some of the content of the article today in cleveland.com that kind of alluded to the fact that we may not have been forthcoming with some of the information. It was an oversight on my part to switch those TAs that were in executive content, which you're familiar with as board members. Many times things are in executive content, and at or after the meeting, it goes into public comment, and they weren't switched over to public comment. So when the article was being written, they were asking about that, which caused some miscommunication or lack of clarification, which led to the article in Cleveland.com today saying that we just revealed or unveiled the contract that we actually voted on and approved last May. So we'll put some processes in place so that doesn't happen moving forward. But this is a byproduct of the process after TAs approved of making sure corrections are made.
Yeah, and it really does take time, because I think I usually manage a lot of that with our legal counsel and the OEA rep, as well as Bonnie as our union representative in that case for BEA. And there's a lot of back and forth. So once we have all of that, the TAs are obviously done. That's what Jeff was talking about, that were approved. We kind of move to the next phase of how can we then work on getting the clean version of the contract. We look at a full contract first, that then becomes where you see all of the actual TAs inserted then into a full 208-page document. Everyone then reviews that. We review it, legal counsel reviews it. It goes to BEA. Their representatives review it, as well as the union representation does. Once everyone is comfortable there, which is where some of these items were discovered, then it comes back for a clean version, which is really where we are today. And that's why this process does take a long time. Because now once you get the clean version, we're still sending things back. We've got one last review with a couple final questions to make sure everyone's on the same page before we publish it to the website. That process was a little bit faster with VOS, our support organization, and that's why that has already been posted to the website, which was only actually a couple of weeks ago. But we're working with the same OEA rep and the same legal counsel, so there's only so much capacity that they have, as well as working with their other bargaining units in other school districts, which again takes time to get to the final product. But nothing has essentially changed, obviously, since you guys had voted on it, as well as the unions voted on it back in May.
This is a common process since I've been on the board, where when you enter into negotiations and you have a tentative agreement, a tentative agreement, usually we're voting on the tentative agreement, which has all of the elements which will eventually get folded into the official contract. But because of the way negotiations work, and then you get it on the board agenda, you don't have usually a finalized version of the contract with every element placed in there. So usually it's approving of the TA, the tentative agreement, then the contract kind of gets cleaned up and all of those elements get put in, and then the board doesn't have to approve the contract. We already approved all the elements. It's just in a final form.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so let's do a roll call on on BOE-BEA letter of understanding.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes. Item passes 5-0. Moving on to item C, resolve to approve step placement memorandum of understanding between the Brecksville Broadview Heights Organization of Support Staff and the Brecksville Broadview Heights Board of Education as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So this is a MOU dealing with one of our employees, a bus driver who was hired back in September of 22. And during that same time, I think there were some administrative changes in the transportation department. And that bus driver was placed on step 1 at that time and should have been put on step 3. So this is correct. This is taking the individual and placing him on the correct step that he should be on based on his previous experience.
Very good. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 9, superintendent's other business. Item A, resolve to approve the service agreement with closed bin for textile recycling as attached. Item B, resolve to approve the wraparound expert service agreement as attached. Item C, resolve to approve the Ohio University clinical experiences agreement as attached. Item D, resolve to approve the high school robotics team overnight trips as attached. Item E, resolve to approve the high school
Sorry.
athletic teams overnight trips as attached. Item F, resolve to approve the 2025, 2026, 2026, 2027 district calendars as attached. Item G, resolve to approve superintendent's other business items A through F. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So here we, it's a sustainability committee item right on top. So we have a textile recycling service that we're going to start. So right out front, we will have one here as well as the elementary building, and it will receive used clothing. These bins have sensors on the inside. So when they get to a certain level, the company is notified, they come out, they take the material so that they don't end up on the ground and around the bins like every Monday morning with our cardboard recycling bin that's out front here. So Mr. Collins and I have had conversations that we're going to relocate that cardboard bin over to the other dumpsters by the middle school because we also know cardboard bin is going away. We're just waiting for them to come get it. But each Monday morning, I feel bad our maintenance guys are out there picking up cardboard all over the front yard. So that we will have one here, having one at the elementary building. We actually receive 7 cents per pound. So that those funds that are generated by that recycling bin will go into the O18 account at the elementary school, which is the principal's account. So just another way to help teach our students and provide for our community for recycling. Wraparound expert service agreements. This is some.
So St. Columkill has opted as one of our non-publics to participate. They sometimes do, sometimes don't in federal funding. So they're using their Title I funds to pay for this wraparound experts organization. So we do this, we approve contracts like we see sometimes PSI for Assumption School. It's a very similar contract for that. So that this is how they're going to use their Title I funding that comes from the federal government through the state of Ohio, through Brecksville Broadview Heights to St. Columkill.
Item C is Ohio University, just a clinical experience for student teaching placements. So we continue to build the pipeline of candidates. And then we have the D and E are just the wonderful experiences that our coaches and our advisors and things provide and booster groups provide for our students. So the robotics roadshow, as you can see, will be going to Indiana and Michigan. So those are all listed there. Some athletic team trips that will be happening as well this winter. So those are on the agenda for approval. We're getting better at completing our field trip request forms so that all the information is there and make sure we cover all of our bases. Then we have our district calendars for approval. Last meeting was kind of first read. I have received 0 feedback from the community on it or from staff. I think everybody's happy to have these, and all the vacation requests will be made in the next couple of days. So for the next 2 school years.
Could you speak to the Clearwater Beach, Florida trip for basketball?
They play in a tournament down there. They've gone the past couple of years. I'll just speak to, they were there last year
Okay.
when I was here, but I think they've gone previous years as well.
They
But
have.
they do a substantial amount of fundraising throughout the year. That fundraising dollar goes to the cost of the trip, and then whatever's left is then divided beyond amongst the players that will be going on the trip. So Coach Pollock takes them and have a good time. I believe the girls basketball team
They're
is
going-
going to the city, down there to a large tournament. Hopefully Clearwater will be cleaned up by that.
Maybe?
I have a question. St. Columkill is not located in Brecksville or Broadview Heights, so what's the connection with that wraparound services agreement?
To be honest, I don't know. They, do you do the consultations? We have students there.
Okay.
And that would be there like reading.
This is the first time in a long time.
Since I've been here.
That's what we have to do is we have students. School.
Right.
Okay.
They want to participate.
And it's, yeah. And sometimes they don't, because sometimes it could be $500 and it's just a lot of work to not. So a lot of times the non-publics will opt out. But whereas Assumption, for instance, they qualify for 10,000, sometimes 15,000, because they have more students, which is why they do the PSI contract through that. But there's another one participating too, though, isn't it? St. Michael's this year. Yeah.
Wraparound is a form of PSI.
Oh.
Yeah.
And those ones can vary, like Dr. Martin said, just because it depends on how many kids are there too, that would qualify for free and reduced for Title I. So
Okay.
sometimes you could have 0 or 1, or sometimes you could have 4, 5, or 6, and that amount or that dollar amount would increase if we had those students qualify and attend.
Any other comments or questions?
I have questions about the trips, the athletic trips. When I look at the forms and they're saying that they have fundraised, which you mentioned, I note that some are only taking so many students on the trip, but it's possible that more than the 12 students that are going on the trip have been included in the fundraising.
I can't speak with great certainty if they have or have not. I'll speak from past experience
Mhm.
because sometimes when you get into some of these trips, it gets very sticky. For
Mhm.
example, I used to be a baseball coach. We'd go to spring training in Florida. You have tryouts for baseball because you can't just keep everybody who wants to play.
Mhm.
You have to start fundraising activities before the season actually starts.
Mhm.
So you would have situations where students may participate in the fundraising, not knowing if they're going to be on the team, not knowing if they're going to be going on the trip. So as a coach or an athletic director, you need to be pretty clear up front as to what the fundraising is going to be used for and how the funds will be distributed. And most of the time, if not all fundraising activity goes to the total bill. And then the remaining balance is then divided by the students who go on the trip. Because if you do it the other way, and years ago, people used to do fundraising where you had an individual account, that becomes earned income. And there's IRS implications to that. And it used to be a common practice years ago. And then somebody obviously got reported, or they researched it or looked into it and said, you can no longer do that. So I can't speak with certainty on these trips as to who participated in the fundraising. It was the program. I would assume, though, on some of these that are smaller teams, many of the times you have your returning, these are your varsity teams that go for the most part. So typically those rosters, I don't mean to say that they're set, but you have returning players.
But you couldn't speak to, because you're not sure that students who would have no opportunity, say they were going to participate on a freshman team because they're a freshman,
Yeah.
that they would be required to fundraise for something they would never have the opportunity to participate in.
I know what my preference is. I can't speak with certainty as to how this fundraising was, but I will look into it.
And the reason that I ask, I think it's important that other board members know, I've been contacted by community members pretty heavily over the past week regarding some of these issues, and have not had an opportunity to actually reach out to you guys about that, but that has come to light that there is a lot of concern around our athletics and money that parents are giving to teams and not understanding what the money is going to. The fundraising that is being done, they have no idea how that money is being spent. So hence my questions around some of this.
And I appreciate those questions and I appreciate you sharing that with Craig and I, because those type of comments or beliefs send shivers down our back, because ultimately we're the ones responsible for it. But it also speaks to the fact why we do things the way we do them now, because it's pretty crystal clear on here what the costs are associated with these trips, so that when families are participating in fundraising, they do see where it's being spent. However, there are fundraising activities that happen on teams for a lot of the extras. And then I don't necessarily always know how effectively it's being communicated as to what those dollars are being used for. And so hearing those comments and understanding those concerns, and coming from an athletic director's background, I'll hop on those pretty quickly to make sure that we find a way to clearly communicate whenever we're asking families or community members to donate as to where those funds are going. That should be crystal clear. So we will do everything we can to improve upon that.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Bykowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 10, superintendent's personnel recommendations. Item A, resolve to approve certified personnel recommendations. Item B, resolve to approve classified personnel recommendations. Item C, resolve to approve superintendent's consent items A through B. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Certified is super short. We have 2 OPES re-credentialing. And then we also have an SLP substitute who is really stepping in, helping us out. We were very fortunate to find an SLP substitute to help cover some of the required minutes of therapy. Then on the classified side, a little bit larger of a list. However, we'll start right at the top, and I'd like to introduce to you our new operations coordinator who's with us tonight. And Rachel Blanchette is here with us. So she's new to the BBH family, and is filling an important role in our operations, and that's as coordinator. She comes to us with a lot of experience in the private sector, with, I believe it's Hyatt Hotels and operations. But even more important, she's a community member and has 2 future Bs that will be hopefully attending our schools in the very near future. So we'd like to just welcome Rachel as she leads off the agenda tonight here. And then we also have some stage crews, some substitute educational assistants on here, a few resignations, a retirement, and then also a termination.
Any questions or comments?
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, Rachel.
It's been 2 days. We
2
haven't
days.
chased her away.
Yeah.
yet.
she's come back.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Bykowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen,
Yes, item passes 5-0. Now officially welcome aboard.
Yeah.
officially welcome.
Moving on to item E, resolve to approve supplemental personnel recommendations. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Just filling out some of our winter supplemental positions that you see on here, a couple of math counts as well, robotics club, safety patrol at the elementary.
I have a question about our safety patrol. Is it just adults that do the safety patrol, or do we have any student, like our upper grades at the elementary, that participate in that as well?
And I'll look to my crew here in case I say something incorrectly, you can yell at me. So those are our adult safety patrol individuals.
Mhm.
And they do, since they've changed the release at the elementary at the end of the day, we do have students who, not necessarily safety patrols we would think of
Yeah.
it with the badges and the flags on it. They hold up bus numbers to help
Okay.
coordinate and get the kids where they need to go on the right buses. So I think I covered it correctly, right?
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Abstain.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes. Item passes 4-0. One abstain. Moving on to item 11, treasurer's consent agenda. Item A, resolve to approve the financial reports as attached. Item B, resolve to approve the following new funds effective immediately. Item C, resolve to accept Pro Quality Demolitions bid for the Hilton Elementary School demolition project in the amount of $467,000. Item D, resolve to accept donations as presented. Item E, resolve to approve the minutes September 18th, 2024, regular board meeting as attached. Item F, resolve to approve treasurer's consent items A through E. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so. I mean, Rachel's here, so we could read the check register, right? She's new.
Love it.
Takes a while. Mr. Bacco's here, so we got a lot of new people here that did not have a chance to have such exhilarating fun. Anyway, let's talk about the real good stuff. So September closed out, we received $392,000 from the state in unrestricted money. We received $57,000 in restricted. Total of 46,000, I think, in other miscellaneous operating income for a total of about $900,000 in income. We spent $2.6 million in salaries, $1 million in benefits, 300, almost identical number, look at that, in purchase services and supplies. I know, 1,000 in capital outlay, 8,000 in other objects for a total of $4.3 million for the month. So I think I made this, I can go back. I made this more vertical so we can look at this vertically now. So when we compare the revenues from September of last year to September of this year, you can see that those numbers are very consistent. And the reason why would be that we received approximately $60,000 more in state funding this year over last year. Other revenue was down approximately $40,000 due to some timing. When you look at how this impacts the forecast in terms of revenue, and again, next month we will have the forecast presentation. So our forecasted revenue is $55,700,000 and projected should be now closer to 56. So that's an increase or improvement from the previous forecast of $647,000. When we look at the expenditures from last year to this year, we have a relatively large difference, but that is because last year September was a 3-pay month, whereas this year August was a 3-pay month. And then purchase services and supplies were increased over last year. The largest category increase this year was in supplies so far. Much of this is hopefully due to timing because those budgets are getting real thin in October. But they are aware of where they're at. But they are a lot of times we do buy supplies earlier in the year before you as you get your school year started. As you see how that impacts the forecast, we were projecting last year $57 million in expenses, and now we're looking a little bit closer to $56 million, which is positive by $595,000. So
Wouldn't that be favorable? Why is that unfavorable? Isn't it
Oh,
better that our expenses are lower?
sorry. Yes, I was worried on my formatting that I'd not go back to that because my next thing is I'm going to actually make that a formula that's going to say what it is.
Yes.
So that doesn't happen, but I will fix that and update it for you. That is favorable to the to the projected expenses. Anyway, at the end of the day, this does still show a deficit for the fiscal year of $78,000 with an ending cash balance of $698,000. When we compare the fiscal year to date, revenues are very consistent this year to last year, just a smidge less than it was last year. And then when we look at expenses this year so far, we are above. Just as to pre-warn everybody for next month in October, we did send our first check for the retirement incentive, as that is going to impact our bottom line this year. That was sent at the beginning of October for $409,000. So that will hit in the benefits category I'm sorry, salaries category for for October. So it's going to look inflated to some extent as that hits this month when we report for November.
Greg, before you move on,
Sure.
can you be a little bit more detailed about why supplies went up? And you said it had something to do with timing. I'm not quite sure I followed that.
So every year, I mean, I think it's hard because the budgets are very similar to what they were previously. So some people just choose to spend their budgets faster or slower in terms of how they manage their budgets. So like the total budget is basically set for the fiscal year. And we'll make some small tweaks throughout the year. But in general, some people just choose to do some of that stuff more upfront versus not. Depending on where they left off also from last year and how much supplies they had, they may have pre-bought at the end of last year or vice versa. So yeah. Authorization of new funds. These are 5 different funds that we have been asked to authorize. One is for unified sports at the high school so that they are able to put revenues and expenses into there. Also planning ahead for the class of 29, 30, and 31. I was just telling Mr. Harrison earlier, creating new funds is never a fun process. So when you do that, you want to do a lot of them at the same time. So you have to do all those steps multiple times. So we're good till 2031 in terms of class funds. And then also French Club, which is a new club for this year, which is replaced for the most part Chinese Club. But even though that club is still running, I think this year with a volunteer. So French Club would need its own fund as well. And then
The unified sports, what is that?
Wow.
they're both here.
Mr. Baggo's here for a superintendency class to get hours, so.
Yeah, step up to the microphone. Just give a quick as to why, and you made the request. Well, actually, no. Josh Haynes made the request, but you can speak to it.
Making sure that you.
Gotcha.
So we started Unified Sports last year, and it's been going on for about like 5 or 6 years, probably in the area. When I was an assistant principal at Avon High School about 5 years ago, I kind of got introduced to it. But what it really is it is our general education students working with our students with moderate to intensive needs, and they actually go and compete against other schools. And this year we've done flag football. We did basketball last year. We hosted kickball and cornhole for the first time last year. And so really it's nice because it works with Special Olympics. And so Special Olympics provides us like the kids with jerseys, all the equipment like flags, footballs, all that kind of stuff. The only thing that the schools are really responsible for is producing host sites and then the travel expenses. And so we are working on some creative ways to do some different fundraising, and Mr. Haynes has been really impactful with that because we do want our kids that are involved in those programs, especially our moderate to intensive needs kids, to have some ownership of that too. And so we've talked about doing some different things, like starting like a spirit store that they would stock and then be able to sell items back to the kids throughout the high school and stuff like that to kind of raise some funds for that transportation. But it's been super impactful, not just for our students with moderate to intensive needs, but also for our general education students too. And so we actually did our first trip this year was to Highland High School. And it was kind of unique too, because it was on PSAT day. So some of our seniors, because they were the only ones who didn't have to come and take the PSAT, got to go with some of those moderate to intensive needs students to the high school. So they got some community service hours, and it was a good day for them and for everybody. And then we actually did host earlier in September. We were the first ones to host flag football this year out of all the community schools in the area. So we hosted Strongsville High School, Highland High School, John Marshall, and North Olmsted. St. Ed's was there, North Olmsted, St. Ed's. So usually you get about 5 or 6 high schools to come to a site and compete. And then the teachers, so Jeff Sidaway, Andy Wheelis, our gym teacher this year at the high school, Coach Eric Reinhardt, they're the ones who kind of organize everything and then invite the schools in. And then it's really cool because what they end up doing is we have like music, we have like an announcer, so the kids get their names announced, their teams. We do the big blow up B, they get to run out through the tunnel. So they're the superstars for the day. And then the nice thing too is all of our students are welcome if they have open campus, study hall, or lunch during that time. They're able to come out and then positively cheer on all teams. And so we have a spirit group. One of our educational assistants, Megan Kane, she has kind of heads that up, and they make all the kids in the morning, like usually in first period or second period study hall, they'll make spirit signs for each individual school. So it's a really inclusionary group, and it's been really impactful to all of our kids. So we're very lucky to have it, and hopefully it keeps growing. The other nice thing that we've kind of done, and Cassie's been real instrumental in this too, is we have a teammates class for our moderate to intensive needs students, and that's their PE, like inclusionary PE class or adaptive PE class. And we also have gen ed students who are involved in that class, and those are actually we call them partners, but they're the students that basically participate in unified sports with them from the gen ed curriculum. And so they're involved in that class. So we're trying to get some new course offerings. So you may see those coming up when we do our course options book. But some new course options, such as like a tech ed program that would be that teammates model or inclusionary with our gen ed students and their moderate to intensive need peers, and more of like an adaptive art type of class for them as well. So they're kind of getting involved in different ways. Now we have kids from, both sides, and kids who might not really be interested in the athletic world, but want to participate and help out students with special needs and those disabilities. And they can do that through other models, whether that's art or the tech ed program and things like that too. So we're happy about it.
Thanks for on the spot information. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it just at the high school or is?
So we are trying to like make it more like there's other schools that do the middle school, and we've met on that. We're trying to collect those students and kind of get that involved too. And then I know the elementary school is interested in kind of getting that ramped up. I don't know as much about that. I know that was a push for like this year that we were trying to do some of those things down there. But there are other schools that do the middle school. We have yet to like host an event or take our kids anywhere, but that's something that we're trying to grow. So, and the nice thing too is, and I really am pleased with all of the people who get involved with this at all the other schools too. It just becomes a big community, really. This year, the director from Special Olympics that kind of runs all of the sports or the events in the area for unified sports, they stepped away, and so there hasn't really been anybody in place. So the schools have kind of kept this going with really out anybody from the Special Olympics organizing this, and so it's been really nice to see everybody kind of keep this going, even though it could have just folded really easily this year. So,
Nice.
The middle school does include more version class too, so they are still able to make the incorporated as well.
Right.
Yeah, in the elementary, they're one of the first elementary there when they reached out there.
Yeah, Colleen Toth is a huge champion of it because her son participated as a general ed peer at Highland, and she watched, what a great experience it was for her son, and so she's really championing it, trying to get it going at the elementary level as well.
It's great.
It's good stuff.
Okay, so let's talk about demolition, maybe, because I'm like, my computer here is running really slow and now this one's not moving, but I'll just talk while it maybe updates. There we go. So we had the bid for the demolition of Hilton, and the good news is we are under what our estimates were. So if you recall, we did, and that's again part of what Jeff had said earlier about why we want to have that conversation more about PI after this, because we do have money in that capital projects fund. So that's where this demolition is going to occur from. So we got a bid of $467,000, which is up for your approval. When we look at the entire total project cost, which is that plus what we call our soft costs and our non-construction costs, we are looking at bid day savings of $172,000 in total. And there's contingency as a part of this as well. So we're in a good spot. And then we can still have that conversation in terms of PI that there may be another capital project we can fund out of that other account that is available when we have the whole like holistic PI conversation here in the next couple of weeks. So overall, very favorable. If you looked at the bid tab, wide range of bids that were presented. Kind of crazy, actually, from 467,000 is our low bid and all the way up to 629,000. Yes. So pretty big spread overall. And this is a company that AVG has worked with, correct, Brian? Pro Quality Demolition. So we're excited.
Brian, if you don't mind me asking, put it in a spot, what's the process going to look like after approval, or if approved, what goes next? Because our community is going to be asking, so feel free to step there.
So we've been, we did our pre-construction meeting, or scope review meeting with them, sorry. They're comfortable with their numbers. We said, go ahead and submit your 10-day EPA notice to demo, which is for the abatement process. They hopefully submitted it last Tuesday, giving them 10 work days, which next Tuesday they could tentatively start setting up for abatement. They're gonna submit their contract or their schedule after this evening if it was approved or if it is approved. We'll know a date, and I know we've said possibly before spring break coming down. I think it's gonna be closer to the first of the year. So they wanna get in, get it down, get it cleaned up, and move on to the next project. That's the whole construction world, is get them done quick and move on to the next ones. So we should see movement on it extremely fast.
Thank you, Brian.
Is everything out of the building? Like there's a lot of stuff stored in there, right?
Everything that we've stored over there worth anything is good. We did a auction 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. Anything worth value is out of there. If you walk through it now, there's old desks, things that are not worth any value. Is not worth it.
Okay, so they'll just go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Will the building, the perimeter be fenced in?
Yes.
Or will the drive to Hilton be closed, or that remain open?
The construction site will be fenced in. You can probably drive in because the contractors need a spot to drive in to access it, but they are aware on nice days that students do travel from high school, middle school down the hill to get over there. So they're well aware there's traffic there and they need to take all the precautions to make a safe construction site.
Okay. Next up is donations. We just have one cash donation to the boys soccer team. Hoping that this does not go. There we go. Now we're moving a little faster. And the last part is the minutes that is there for you. And just as a special treat, I just want to make sure that it has already been updated. Yes. Sure. It's green. Look at that. You know. Thanks, Brian. You bought me a few minutes of time. Perfect. Any other questions?
Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 12, closing items. Item A, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for November 20th at 6 p.m. Item B, resolve to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Happy fall.